Good morning. Welcome to the Uncommon Fathers podcast. We're calling it Uncommon Mornings. You can find it at uncommonfathers.org/podcast. And if you need more info, email me at tim@uncommonfathers.org. Well, welcome. This is day 2, and we are trying our best. I'm coming to you live from my car, being as proactive as I can with my time. I encourage you also to find slivers of time to do multiple tasks. Today's motivation: everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid. That's Albert Einstein. So I want to encourage you to, embrace your individuality and understand and accept that you have unique gifts. And I hope you execute upon that today and enjoy your Friday. Want to also call to attention in my little brief current event mention the economic cycle. We live in an ebb and flow world. There's bear markets, there's bull markets, and it's important to realize that things are changing. And in my opinion, and I'd love to hear yours, we are nearing a bear market recession, and I base this judgment on a couple of factors. One is the number of layoffs being announced by large corporations. That typically is a harbinger of bear market cycles, and I see quite a bit of it, and you also see quite a bit of it coming at unique times or piggybacked on weird or other newsworthy items as a means to hide that information or hopefully sweep it under the rug. The most recent one, yesterday, Walmart announced the closure of a large number of Sam's Clubs around the country. At the same time, they announced an increase of their minimum pay rate to $11, which, whoop-de-doo, that's a big change. But, the closure of Sam's Clubs is a big thing to take note of. That's a huge business, and if they're closing down part of that business, that means that there are challenges in that sector, and that's consumer consumption, which is a huge driver of our economy. So another number I would encourage you all to figure out and read and understand is these holiday sales and the year-end numbers for 2017 from all of the major retailers. Looking at those trends on, same-store numbers from previous years and quarters, as well as the percentage of online orders. It's going to be an interesting next few months. The other aspect that tells me the economy might be shifting is that there has been a dramatic reduction in merger and acquisition activity. That's usually kind of the beginning of the down on those waves of economic cycle. Typically, those heat up as the economy is getting better because people are trying to, consolidate, reduce expenses, and increase margins. But now that has started to dry out, you could probably see a change coming in the near future. Will it be this year? Will it be next year? I don't know. But remember, the last cycle, the commercial real estate crash came about 2 years before everybody else got massively challenged. So the reason I bring this up is because in the Bible, we're taught about 7 years of feast, 7 years of famine, and you better be prepared. And Joseph in Egypt was lauded for taking care of the people by storing grain. And I would recommend you get your financial house in order, not only at home, but also at work, and see what would happen if your business or the business you work for were to experience a downward cycle, and what changes would possibly happen, and how can you anticipate, where your benefit can be maximized. So if your position were to be downsized or eliminated, could you still be utilized in that company, or could you have a secondary option? It's always a good idea to have that mapped out. Where am I going to go next? Today, on our segment where I try to talk about how to make you better, in the car on the way to school, the children and I decided to do a gratitude chain. What is a gratitude chain? Well, I've got 3 kids that come to school with me every morning. The baby stays home with mom. And so we go counterclockwise, and we go around and we each mention one thing that we're thankful for, and you can't repeat a thing. So this took a little coaching. I had to encourage my daughters to get a little more excited about the activity. And it took probably half the drive to get them to start opening up. But afterwards, they really had smiles on their faces, and they were much more talkative and seemed to begin their day a little bit happier as we focused on things we were thankful for. However, I did have my very legalistic daughter, my middle daughter. She decided that her thankfulness was for the universe, which meant that everything below that she was already thankful for, so she didn't want to participate. So just be prepared for the beautiful minds of your children and how wonderful they work. Just remember that it's an activity to spark conversation and communication between your children at whatever age. And remember, if you're talking about the little stuff, that'll open up channels to talk about the big stuff. Our personal financial nugget, again, we talked about a little up front, but are you ready for change? If someone were to lose a job in your household, would you be able to handle it? If an emergency came at you, are you prepared? So the concept of an emergency fund, how much should I have in an emergency fund? Well, in my opinion, it depends on how you make money and what type of job you have. If you are a commissioned person or you have a very unique job that would be hard-pressed to find a replacement in your area, I would suggest you need a larger emergency fund, possibly 6 months of your expenses. If you are a nurse or a teacher or an accountant or some other trade that has many, many, many different types of businesses or spaces for you to be employed, or you have relative job security like a teacher or a nurse would have, then I would suggest maybe 3 months would be an appropriate amount for your emergency fund. Now, where should I keep my emergency fund? Now, this is not investing money. This is not money you stick in Bitcoin or in the market at all. If you must have interest on this, your only option for an emergency fund is your money market account. I highly recommend you set this up at the bank you already bank with, because typically they give you a better rate of return if you have multiple accounts. And you set this money in there and you do not touch it unless you absolutely need it in an emergency. And that is what it's there for. It is not an investment. It is insurance against the craziness. And a good emergency fund would have those 6 months of expenses. I'd also encourage you to have an amount in there for car repair. I'd encourage you to have an amount in there for home insurance and car insurance deductibles, as well as health insurance deductibles, which we can talk about the HSA savings plan at a later call, but in the very least, get it in your money market and do your best. As far as closing out today, I just want to make sure you focus on the concept of margin. As you're creating your goals and you're kicking butt and taking names professionally, just remember that why am I doing all this? Remember we talked yesterday about the stop day financially, but also remember you're raising a family, you have personal pursuits you want to enjoy, so the concept of margin is unaccounted for time that's accounted for, if that makes sense. So it's like a paper. The margin on the paper is there for extra. So don't fill up the margin with obligations like kids' activities and work responsibilities and volunteering, etc. Those are all great things. We love them. But make sure you have proper margin in there to just enjoy your kids and enjoy your wife and enjoy your family, or just enjoy quiet time. So margin. It's in your life to give, and I just can't stress enough, just give that time to your family. Again, thank you so much for being with us today. God bless you, and we will see you tomorrow.